we're designing for. Thomas, I'd like to start with you. What role can design really play in our day-to-day lives? Not just in the brand projects, but in a very ordinary spaces and objects that surround us.
Well, designing your relationship to plants is quite fascinating. I love plants so much that I think that I feel like a bit of imposters, and we're not here as like sleep gurus. You know, my sleep patterns are as mashed up as anybody's could be from travelling, but that sort of helps to say that the problem gets there, and so many of us are more sensitised to sleep, and there are more conversations about how do you actually manage to sleep, and this constant distraction that we have with our kind of just message me, that kind of sort of thing that's always in the back of our heads, and to have that thing, that portal to every joy and every worry next to you as you sleep is quite a thing. And so trying to find ways to the idea that you can stop all that stimulus and then instantly sleep. I think we're learning more and more that your brain just keeps whirring around on whatever the last thing was. And so you do need to sort of soften, turn down and tune down your thinking. But we've had the best alarm clock we've had is our funny phones. And so we end up keeping them there just because the alarm clock. And then the alarm clocks you can actually buy are a pile of plastic. And so you end up with all these things these plasticky devices that, particularly the ones that are exploring how you can have a softer waking up, but also a softer going to sleep. They look good in photos, but when you touch them, they've got no weight to them, and they feel like they should go straight to landfill in terms of the plasticky nastiness. So I think a big part for us was how we could work with the science of trying to change and make a more subtle relationship to sleep, but also there's something that was more mineral. It seems that we will probably hopefully live for another 30, 40, 50 years, and you're going to need waking up. It isn't a temporary need, and so why have something that doesn't feel like you're part of your room rather than a little micro junky thing? And so I think material was a very big part for us of the problem to solve. But Stuart, my collaborator, maybe he's the one who's better explain things than me.
You mentioned setting me up for a fall there. I mean, just to really build upon what Thomas has just said, whilst we're not sleep technologists or sleep experts, everyone in this room is an expert at sleep, because you've got no choice, so to speak, unless you're a vampire or immortal. But we all know what it feels like to have a bad night's sleep. Everyone in this room, pretty sure, has had a terrible night's sleep, probably far too often, and we all know how negatively impactful that is. It ruins your happiness, your relationship to your partner or your children, your ability to do your job. It really screws you up. But you also know what it feels like to have a good night's sleep. And you know, that sort of giddy feeling of, I slept really well, wow, it just feels so good. So in a way, we're all deeply expert in exploring that range of good and bad sleep. So when Tala approached us to say, would you be interested to maybe think about working on this? I mean, we like design, and we love big design, buildings, we like small details, but this felt like a different opportunity because it had a deeper meaning that affects everyone, absolutely everyone, whether you care about design or not. So that felt like a great challenge to try and address. And so, as Thomas was saying, when we looked at the competition, naming any names, it's great to see how bad it is, because it meant, almost by definition, anything that we did that was a little bit better would be a lot better. But we pushed ourselves to really embrace naturalness, take influence from nature. And hopefully you've seen the design. It takes its inspiration from the sun and the earth and really build upon that narrative and that material palette. So I think naturalness, waking gracefully, not being alarmed. I love the fact that alarms are called alarms. It's like, they are alarming. And waking up suddenly, it doesn't feel good. That kind of like being slapped. It doesn't feel good. Whereas being woken gracefully, or more interestingly, being soothed to sleep, I think that's where, hopefully, this is really interesting. And we were saying earlier, as we move into the winter, that will be the real test of this. Does it help? And during sort of seasonal change and sunlight becomes more red. So I think lots of dimensions that are super interesting for us, even though it's a quiet, demure little object.
And obviously you're used to designing for very large scale projects. So when you came to doing something so small and so connecting and about humanizing, where did it all start? How did you think, okay, the design process?
The materials was a big thing, and when I was growing up, I was around quite a lot of people who worked with making things like glass blowing or throwing clay pots on the wheel, and also the schools and colleges having shut down their in the art department there was normally a pottery department bit, and so making coil pots, and that I think many people experience that now sadly because there's so much more health and safety worries. There's much less of that, but that feeling of cold clay in your fingers, and when you do actually throw a pot on a wheel, I never got to really into the science of the glazes, but the feeling of turning something, and then when it comes out and you fired it, and it's just this mineral object. And so when we began by buying lots of crockery, because it felt like the opposite of these plasticky objects was the objects made that we're used to, mass-produced, but crockery. There's a lot of Japanese crockery that's quite amazing, and Chinese crockery. And so we went on quite a long research thing, looking also at some of the rice bowls that where traditionally they had rice put into the clay, which would burn out, and then the glaze would fill in, and so you got translucency. Am I allowed to admit we weren't able to make that one work?
Yeah.
But instead, we have glass. So we used glass at the bottom, and then so we were looking at porcelain, stoneware, and all the different kind of clay mixes. But there's just something about things you touch, and the design really came from looking at the spun pots. But and knowing we didn't want to have a ceramic thing then with some plastic buttons. So making ceramic, so that is the control. So you turn it, and that affects how bright or dim it is, and then you just push down the ceramic, which acts as your mouse button in effect to control it, and then having this little projection into the glass inside it. But so you're just touching the clay. And so we had a hunch that even though normally mass-produced things are always plastic, that there might be a way to have a mass-produced thing that was using, because if you can mass-produce plates, surely you can do bowls. With some grain and texture in the glaze, surely we can mass-produce the componentry for something like this. And the fact that the bulbs are, I love that Tala pioneered using seeing the light source as its own lamp, instead of the idea that you have your light bulb and then you need a thingy over the top of it, making the light bulb be the thingy because of the technologies shifting from the old sort of tungsten light bulbs to integrating LEDs and other sort of newer ways to use less energy. And so the glass, just got glass and ceramic. Can that be it?
So not having buttons was like one of the very first things, like
Yes. Yes. We were also working on a very large building project in China, in Xi'an, where the terracotta warriors are. And so we made this project that's about 6.5 times our Google building. Wow. So it's got 4 towers and all these things. But however massive it is, it came down to most new places tend to feel quite soulless because there's no imperfection. We're thinking, how do we get a new place with imperfection? So ceramic was something where you could get mass-produced imperfection in the glazes. You know, when the glazes start to crackle and pull apart. So at the same time as we were working on this, we were working with a particular city in China where the whole city does ceramic. Ceramic kind of everything for the world. And trying to work out how we could get mass-scale imperfection that when you put it together to make all these buildings would create a visual complexity. So at a micro scale, we wanted a little bit of that visual complexity that you get in old buildings and some of the older materials, but we didn't want to have to copy those. So there was a little family of things all leaning together. Also, I was kind of biased. I remember going, when I went to college first, up to Stoke-on-Trent. You know, Stoke-on-Trent was the ceramic engine for this country, and it's hugely diminished now. And I know there are some people trying to get ceramic production again now. But there's just something amazing to me about ceramic. You go to the V&A and you go to the ceramics department. They don't need to filter any UV light on the windows. There are pieces there that are 2,000 years old that look exactly the same as they did 2,000 years ago. And you look at the old underground stations with the glazed ceramic. You look at the old pubs with the glazed ceramic. There's something that's really like 1,000-year material about it. So if you happen to live for 1,000 years, hopefully it can still be waking you up because you sleep so well.
And Dan,
are we allowed to claim things like that?
Yeah. Dan, tell me, where did this collaboration come from? Did it just suddenly, a light bulb moment happen, or?
Well, I think... Don't pardon the pun. I think, honestly, we've always admired the studio's work, and I think the alignment of the user being really the focus of everything, and how we can really benefit their day-to-day life and sort of longevity. And alongside that, the tactility of the materials that you guys love to work with, the visual complexity, aligning with what we're trying to do at the same time with the lighting. You know, we've been like borderline obsessed with lighting and light sources for 10 years, trying to pioneer some of the best quality light sources we can give to people, in the hope that, you know, adding that into your home, adding that into your life really elevates everything. You know, you spend a lot of time making your rooms beautiful, buying fantastic art, furniture, all these things, and then you really have to complement that with the light you're going to be putting onto it and elevating it with. So I think we started on that journey, and we wanted to move. You know, we've been putting lights in all over the home for years, and the bedroom is one of those places that really, I think, has the most emotional impact. So we've had lots of lovely bedside lights, and I think we've always felt that there's this next generation of where that can go, and playing with colour temperature was the start. You know, can we have the lamp dim and warm up as it goes down? And then I think kind of opening the conversation to Heatherwick Studio, it broadened it into, you know, can we be more prescriptive about researching into this deeper and understanding what we can offer people with the best technology, but then also using all these fantastic artisan tools, techniques, and kind of combine it into something that is quite rare. I think, like, we're speaking about the ceramic, we're speaking about the glass. These aren't things that are normally kind of put into mass production products, especially as sort of moving components. And as challenging as that is, it's just the result is we're so happy with it. And I don't think we would have really been able to achieve that had it not been for the ambition of Heatherwick Studio and the alignment of all the technical people at Tala. So yeah, it's been great.
I didn't actually think it would ever happen.
Yeah, well, we had our moments.
But then I hope there's no clients in the room, but basically often our projects are the hardest thing anyone who's worked on them has ever worked on. And today I found out that this was kind of the hardest project that worked on, because it's got all the, even though it looks incredibly simple, actually in there are 11 different sounds, including white noise. You can have loud white noise. You know, some of those. So there's quite a lot of the science that you and your team put.
Yeah, I mean,
getting that kind of such control, because with the other light fittings, they're stunning, but haven't had to have that all of that control in there. So I didn't know that we'd be able to, all of those things would all add up. And we just knew you and your team were just there and there. And my team were protecting me from how hard it was. And so I was just like, running around thinking,
yeah, we built ourselves a really beautiful kind of table of push points from all directions. So we really needed it to be human-centered, really needed it to be for the user and have these fantastic material stories. We also needed it to be the most cutting edge it could be in terms of the technology inside it and how the customer interacts with it. And then we also need the light quality to be the best, whilst trying to make it something that's, you know, very accessible for people. And I think those are difficult challenges, and we kind of overcame them as a group, but everyone sort of played their role in pushing their pressure point and then kind of boiled it all together into something.
There's two other people from the studio in the room, Tom and Ian, if you want to wave your hands, so people know you have a chat today. They put hundreds of hours into this, because to make something look simple is really, really hard. And I know that's a cliche, but to have something look as simple as that, with very natural materials that you can't fully control, like the dimensional tolerances of ceramic, it does what it wants to do. So when you're demanding that it's very technological, you can turn it and move it, lots of the responses we were getting back were, you need to change your expectations, sort of relax into it. And that's the reason why things are made of plastic and metals, because they're so precise. This is sort of enjoying its imprecision. And I think that's part of the vibe. It's like, how do you be high-tech, but feel low-tech? Chill down, because to have this in your bedroom, that's a really intimate decision. Bringing a light into your home is one thing, but bringing it into your bedroom, you've really got to feel good about it. So I get the feeling of it, something we were constantly talking about, and almost like tech. It's like tech, feelings, tech, feelings, bouncing between those two.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that, and I'd like to join you in congratulating the members of the Heatherwick team, and Tala team as well. Zoe is here, and Bertie is here as well, and they as well put unbelievable amounts of time into this. You know, designing an app from the ground up, firmware and software inside of a product, all things we've never done before. So it's been a huge pull from everyone.
Could you explain the difference between firmware and software?
I'll do my best. So my understanding, the definition is that firmware is how the software tells the device what to do. So there's like code on the device, on a chip, and that tells you if you rotate it, that means this, do this. And then software is more what you're used to operating with on your phone or a computer. Yeah, that's my pretty terrible description.
No one's allowed to leave until you pass the test. That's the difference between firmware and software.
We'll be interviewed. But maybe something we were asking, because this is so hot off the press, we haven't actually used some of the tech for app, but maybe explain a bit what the app do.
Yeah, of course. So the idea is that you manage the phone from the bedroom entirely. That's great, like A1 behavior, fantastic, and that's really important. And part of that is you can do a lot of the control on the device, you can rotate the ceramic, you can click, you can change your alarm, you can do really quite a lot on the device without needing a phone. So it's very accessible for people who are comfortable with that technology or not. And then to add to that level of trying to push positive sleep behavior on people, if you want to schedule, so you can choose, you can set your wake up time and your sleep time, which will help you decide when you want the light to come on in the morning, how long you want it to come on for, if you want sound or not. All of that can be done additionally in the app as a schedule, so you can really have very good consistency. And I think sleep consistency is one of the things. It's kind of one of the pillars of how to create better sleep habits, sleep hygiene. So in the app, you can decide what day you want to wake up and sleep, and there's a multitude of settings. But the idea is once you've done that, you stick to it, the phone stays out of the bedroom, and you can then just interact with the ceramic dial if you need to, which is a very passive way of kind of operating something that's quite high-tech.
Nice. And then regarding the sound noises, whose decision was it to make all these different sound noises and thought, okay, I want birds, I want this?
I think we were initially wary of adding sound, actually, if I'm honest. But I think after our research, it's very clear that everyone has very different ways of sleeping and waking. And to remove sound entirely is to create a whole another level of anxiety in people that, say, sleep quite heavily. The light will benefit them and will get them out of the deep sleep. But sometimes that final push is required, or maybe it isn't, but the idea that there is a backstop of sound to help them might actually benefit them getting off to sleep. As well as when you're going to sleep at night, there's a lot of research and a lot of products out there that are using static white noise or very soothing, quiet sounds in the evening to help with kind of noise pollution we're probably all used to hearing if you live in the city or not. And there's a lot of good research around that and how having a consistent sound can really help soothe you into a good night's sleep. So it made sense to add some sounds. We curated them to quite a high level. So we worked with a lovely lady called Danny, and she composed the sounds. Some of them are from the WWF archive of field recordings, and she remastered those recordings. So we've got some fantastic bird noises, a night and an evening bird noise. We've got nature sounds, river.
So you didn't personally in the forest.
I wasn't in the
really
forest.
You were going to say, I was like, in the forest.
I did consider it, but I was like, mate, it was really nice. There was like an amazing archive available, and it's really great to kind of, you can pull those together. And there's also some more kind of melodic alarm tracks that are kind of a little bit more energetic. And Danny, she looked into the different frequencies that help you bring alertness in the morning, that can kind of complement the light. So we don't want it to be alarming as such, but we do want it to benefit you in keeping you alert, and it's not something you want to keep on for a long time, but they're really beautiful tracks. So you sometimes find yourself listening to them a little bit longer than you think you would in the morning.
Almost send you back to sleep.
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah.
And for Heatherwick Studio, how important is designing small products for the interior rather than doing very large scale bits and pieces? Do you want this duality, or do you want to stick more on
Okay, sure. I mean, it's something we talk a lot about in the studio, which is you walk into buildings, you work in buildings, you live in buildings, you're taught in buildings, but you can't really hug a building. It's too big a thing. It's this sort of abstract thing that you're on the outside or on the inside. But you touch a handrail, you touch a lift button, you touch a door handle, and those intimate moments really communicate a lot about the values of the building you're in. So some of the best buildings I actually love them because the details I love them. I love the building, but actually it's those moments, those intimate moments. So we've always believed that the small details are absolutely essential to make the big things work, and you can't have one without the other. So we've never really separated architecture from objects. It's all the same thing. It all needs to be thought about in the same way in our opinion, which is through the lens of emotion, meaning and function. But if you miss the emotion bit, the function stuff doesn't really matter. So maybe that's a bit of a pretentious way of answering it, but we love the small stuff, and it's every bit as hard to design. In some ways it's harder to design a good product than a one-off building, because terrifyingly there'll be more than one. And if it's good, that's thrilling. If it's bad, it's game over. And when we worked on the London Bus project, which is one of my most favourite projects ever, I really loved it dearly. I remember seeing the first one and thinking, oh, I'm so proud of our design. And then on the street, when I saw 2, 3, 5, and 10, then eventually there's 1,000 of them in the streets. That hits different. That's got a cumulative power that buildings in a way can't compete with, because it feels like it's a show of sort of belief and power. So the idea that there might be tens, thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, depends how successful in people's homes, I think it's brilliant, absolutely thrilling. So the idea that it's less important or easier than a building, don't believe it. It's just as hard.
Thank God there isn't that much competition on the market so far. And was there any of the design bits and pieces, was there any bits and cuts? Was there any, I must have this, no, I want this? Was there any, either from either side of like, leading.
I was single, yeah, it was smooth the whole time. It was great. It was like a very, very fantastic level of back and forth, which I think is actually exactly what you want. Because that's how you come to something that is just so special, I think. And there's also like quite a few ways of doing something. And it's okay to try more than one way before you fall on the one that's the right way, or the possible way. And there was quite a few renditions, but I think it was all on how you do the thing. So it'd be like, how are we going to do the screen? How big can we make the screen? How can we can we project the light? Can we do dots? Can we do the right and the surrounding to kind of show the light through it? So there were so many different things we wanted to try, and we were wanting to do it in kind of an effective timeline. But what we realised is to just keep trying the different thing and work out the best way of doing it. And it's been a long project, but I think that's allowed us to test out these different methods and come to one that just feels really fantastic for all the different elements of the product.
Bus is a good one to remind myself how when working in architecture, we've been going for 31 years now, and it's always felt starting, it was all about form effects. And we worked with a quite amazing commissioner in Hong Kong, and he taught us. We had 63 3-hour design workshops with him in Hong Kong, and not one after the other. And he really taught us that light was just as important. He said it felt like the biggest put down, but it was like lighting is just as important as any of the architecture that you all do.